Hi all, a very good afternoon and a warm welcome to the webinar on to prepare yourself for the DP200 certification exam, which is about implementing an Azure data solution. And I have with me Prarthit Mehta, who is working as a cloud solutions architect with Cloudnet Technologies and who will be the speaker for the day. So over to you, Prarthit.
Thank you, Ritesh. Once again, welcome you all to DP200 certification preparation webinar. Let me introduce myself. I am Prarthit Mehta. I am working as a cloud solutions architect with Cloudnet Technologies. I have over 8 years of industry experience, and I am very proud to say that I am a very few of the members in the industry who can say that they are cloud native. I started my career on cloud, and everything about cloud I can think of it, right? I have been working on AI and ML since last 2.5 years or so. I am a certified Microsoft trainer, and I host almost all the AI and data trainings on behalf of Cloudnet. I am also certified on Microsoft Azure 103, which is the infrastructure administrator certification. Correct. Please feel free to scan the QR code on the slide to connect with me on LinkedIn. Okay. Let's go ahead and look at what we are going to do and what is the webinar about, right? In this webinar, we are going to talk about a certification offered by Microsoft Azure for implementing data solutions. This webinar is meant for the audience who have been part of our DP200 course and now want to appear for our DP200 for the Microsoft DP200 examination. Correct. The flow of the webinar will be like we'll be talking about a little bit about the certification track, and we'll be talking about how the exam is shaped up, what kind of questions will come, how many questions will be there, what would be the time limit, how much I should be paying if I have to appear for the examination, what is the certification that I'll achieve after clearing the examination. After that, we'll move towards the each area, how Microsoft is going to judge you on during the examination, and some quick refresher about the exam. I'd also talk about some tips and tricks with respect to sample questions, and then we'll close the session for with a quick 10-15 minutes Q&A. Okay. So Microsoft has divided their certifications into roles and role-based certifications. We are going to talk about DP200 implementing an Azure data solution certification, which is affiliated to data and AI role, and which is a part or half of a half step towards Azure Data Engineer Associate certification. If you want to achieve the Data Engineer Associate certification, you should have both DP200 and DP201 clear, right? So let's talk about how this DP200 is shaped up. This DP200 examination consists of, like any other Microsoft examination, it'll have 60 or so questions, which will be giving you Microsoft will be giving you 180 minutes for those 60 questions. The questions difficulty level would be an average difficulty level. The passing percentage by far what we have seen is 70%. This particular exam can be given by appearing either on a testing center, or you can actually appear for the exam or sitting at your office or your home by by doing a self or a video-based proctored exam, right? This particular exam will have multiple types of questions, questions spanning from multiple choice questions, true or false questions, the questions that allows you not to go back or to go back, right? You will have questions surrounding fill in the blank. You will have questions with a case study given to you, and you have to analyze the case study and answer. And as most of Microsoft's examinations are now moving towards whether or not you really hold practical knowledge, they'll also have performance-based or hands-on labs during the examination. This particular examination may consist of one or two labs based on the question paper that has been assigned to you, right? These both the labs can have tasks, number of stars varied from 6 to 10, where if I talk about myself, the questions that I got, or the the labs that I got two labs while appearing for DP200, and one lab was based on the deployment tasks, where I was supposed to deploy multiple services of Azure, and whereas the other type of lab was more about troubleshooting kind of a questions, where I was supposed to debug why a particular scenario is not happening, correct? Uh, the certification cost varies per region. Here is in the slide you see the certification cost is uh, based out of India. We have to pay 4,800 rupees plus the GST to appear for the examination. If we have been awarded with a Microsoft voucher, this particular cost is waived off, or the certification becomes free. The validity of the certification is of 2 years. So once you appear for the examination and if you clear the examination, your certification will be valid for 2 years. Okay. The most asked services in this particular examination are all or most of the data services that Azure offers. We have Azure Storage Account or Data Lake Gen 2 or Cosmos DB or database, Synapse Analytics, which is the data warehouse, the real-time analytics, which is the stream analytics, the orchestration tools like Databricks and Data Factory, right? Now for examination per se, you can either, as I stated earlier as well, you can either give your exam in a Pearson Center, or you can give the exam sitting at your own home or office where you have a stable internet. You can give the exam sitting there, right? Let us jump into what are the skills that will be tested when Microsoft is talking about when you are going to appear for DP200 examination, right? So this particular certification, DP200, is directed towards Azure Data Engineer Associate certification, for which you have to clear both DP200 and 201. And DP200 judges you based on your data storage solutions, based on your capability on providing data processing solutions, and based on your capability on providing on integrating all this storage and processing solutions together, right? The course objective or the study areas that are required for your DP200 examinations are implementing the data storage solution, which weighs somewhere around 40 to 45%. So majority of your questions that will come from your implementation or from implementing the data storage solutions, questions surrounding how to create a storage account, or what are the properties that are must for a storage account, or how can I convert a storage account to be a data lake storage generation 2, whether or not storage account can have hierarchy based data, how should I integrate my data lake storage account with my virtual network, how can I secure my data lake storage account, correct? And how can I have a SQL database server created? How can I do a performance monitoring or performance enhancement with respect to my SQL database? How can I transfer data from my storage account to my data warehouse, correct? Those kind of questions will be part of your first study area, which is your implementing data storage solutions. And don't worry about it. We are going to see a little more in depth about each and every study area throughout the webinar. The next one is about the managing and developing data processing solutions. This particular section has the weightage of 25 to 30% and will be the questions will be surrounding data bricks and data factory, where how will you use Databricks cluster to do ELT or ETL on your data? How will you use data factory to migrate your data from one on-premise database to, let's say, Synapse Analytics on Azure, or on-premise storage to your blob storage, or on-premise database to your Cosmos DB? And how will you create these orchestration pipelines? How will you schedule these orchestration pipelines, and so forth, right? And the last section for the examination gears or focuses on monitor and optimizing data solutions. This particular area again weighs somewhere around 30 to 35%. Most of your questions will be surrounding how can I optimize this particular T-SQL query, or how can I reduce the latency of my query that is being given to the SQL database? How can I reduce latency between the data redundancy between two different regions? How can I have multiple copies of my data created, and surrounding that, right? Having said that, these are all theoretical questions. Similarly, your first section and your second section, these two sections will also have performance-based labs. Performance-based labs will be there for these two sections, where they'll ask you to actually create a storage account, or create a Cosmos DB, or create a Synapse Analytics cluster, or create a Databricks cluster, right? And there might be Microsoft also judges you based on how is your capability with respect to the command line arguments. So there might be questions where they'll ask you to write a command to create a storage account, or to connect to a Cosmos DB database. Okay, let's go and talk about each and every aspect of the study area, right? The first one is implementing data storage solution. This particular study area is further divided into three subcategories. First one, which would be your implementing a non-relational data store, implementing a relational data store, and maintaining security about both the data stores. There are multiple options that Azure provides with your non-relational data store. First one being web accessible storage blob, or the one that we know about, which is the blob storage. It's a storage account which provides you 500 terabytes of storage, which will have multiple types of redundancy. You can either opt for your data being replicated in a single location, or your data being replicated in multiple zones, or your data being replicated in multiple regions. You can also enable read mode on your secondary region. You can also, and it offers multiple types of data. It offers blob data, it offers queue data, it offers table storage, it offers such various type of storage data. You can store it in the blob store, right? The next type of non-relational data store is your Azure Data Lake Generation 2, which enables you to have unlimited amount of data stored on Azure platform, and it also enables hierarchy for you, right? Please bear with me. We are also going to talk about all of these data stores in the depth, in a quick depth throughout the webinar. You also have an option of Cosmos DB, which is a globally distributed non-relational data store offering by Microsoft, right, by Azure. As I stated earlier, there will be questions surrounding how to provision a non-relational data store. If it's a performance-based lab, it will be based on the portal. From the portal, you can actually create, they'll ask you to create a data store, storage account, and give a proper name to it. It should be in a proper region. So the task will go like create a storage account with the name ABCXYZ in uh, East US region, right? And they also focus on your CLI, where they'll definitely this way they'll definitely not ask you to write the command, but they focus on whether or not you are aware about the switches or the options that are mandatory to create a particular service, right? So here is an example of creating a storage account, and these are some of the switches or options which are must for creating a storage account, right? A name to the storage account, resource group of the storage account, which resource group you want to create the storage account in, the location where you want to create the storage account, what should be the redundancy SKU for that particular storage account. Here in the example, I am creating a RAGRS storage account which will have secondary region endpoint available for me to read the data from. And what kind of storage I am trying to create? I am trying to create a version 2 kind of storage. Mind well, this is not a data lake storage. This is still a storage account, which is a version 2 kind of storage account. If I want to convert this particular command to create Azure Data Lake Storage, there is another key that another option that I have to fire, which my team will right now put it up in the chat, which is called -- enable hierarchy, and the value should be true. Correct? If you put that particular key in this particular command, then your command will create a storage account which is of data lake generation 2. Correct? Let's talk about data lake generation 2 for a brief period of time, right? Like what is actually data lake generation 2? So data lake gen 2 is a blob storage which has Hadoop access. The major difference or major differentiator between Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2, or if we acronym it ADLSG2, over blob storage is that it provides Hadoop access. It is coupled with security model, which provides very granular permissions, which makes this ADL Gen 2 a compelling data storage tier for a range of data platform technologies. Right, you can actually provide access based on a particular folder, a particular file. You can very well define that Mr. A in my organization can have only access to a particular hierarchy, right? And you can very well have shared access identity, which can be given to a particular service, and that particular service can have access to your ADL Gen 2 for a period of time. The ability to perform big data analytics is critical, and the performance of ADL Gen 2 helps with it, right? It can not only work with Hadoop for HD Insight, but it can also work with Databricks or Polybase or any other or Azure's command line to read your data from Data Lake Gen 2 and process it using Databricks, or traverse it to Synapse Analytics using your orchestration tool, which is your Data Factory, right? You can also enable, or everything comes up with the redundancy, the same type of redundancy that we had for storage account. We'll have LRS, which is locally redundant storage, which will copy your data in a particular data center. We have ZRS or ZRS, which is zone redundant storage, which will replicate your data in multiple zones in a particular region. You have GRS, which is your geo-redundant storage, which will replicate your data, which will make multiple copies of your data in multiple regions. And you also have capabilities of enabling RAGRS, which enables, as I stated earlier, which enables read access on a particular on your secondary region. You can still keep writing to your primary region, but your secondary region will be allowing you to read the data, right? The next type of non-relational database is your Cosmos DB. Now, Cosmos DB is globally distributed multi-model database service that is being offered by Azure, which provides sub-second query response time, right? And which is very, very unique. Just imagine that that will not be continuous, it will be cumulative downtime, right? Azure Cosmos DB also offers multiple APIs for multiple type of data set, and it allows us to create SDKs for each and every type of programming model. You can connect to Cosmos DB using any programming language that you are familiar with. Cosmos DB has SDK for C#, Python, .NET, your Java, correct? And even you can call it from your web UI, which is the JavaScript. Now for Cosmos DB, there are similar to your storage accounts. Even here, you will need your consistency to be at par, right? So Cosmos DB focuses on 5 types of consistency model, each being their own, each with their own advantages. The first one is the strong consistency, which is exactly similar to your RDBMS. It is way too consistent that every write that you make to your primary will be immediately reflected on your secondary. All your data will be replicated at that particular given period of time. So your read and write latency will be very, very high. This can only be done if you are going with ZRS. You cannot go with GRS. You can go with zone redundancy. It provides so the strong consistency for a single region, right? And as this is going to be the most fast and most consistent data, strong consistency on Cosmos DB costs the highest, right? Make sure that you keep this in mind, because questions will come in the examination which will ask you to choose the consistency model for Cosmos DB with a small little line which says it should be economic, it should be cheap, right? If such is the case, even if you want a strongest consistent data Cosmos DB database, you can't go with strong consistency because cost factor plays a vital role, right? The next type of consistency is bounded staleness, correct? Staleness. Now, this particular type of consistency, the use case for this is that, okay, I want my data to be consistent either for 5 or X number of rows or for N amount of time, right? So you can very well say that, okay, I want latency of maximum 5 records. If there is a latency of more than 5 records, please rerun the consistency or please refresh the database, please refresh the secondary database. It is not consistent enough for me, right? Or you can specify that my data must be consistent for 5 minutes of time. Every 5 minutes, just refresh, hit a refresh and do the syncing again, right? That is your bounded staleness. Then there is your session consistency, which will establish a session for a particular user, which is again as the heart of this particular type of consistency is read your own writes. So a session will be established for a particular user where reads and writes of his will be consistent. That particular user will be consistent. The next type of consistency model is your consistent prefix model. which is in order writes and in order reads. We are okay. The way we are progressing, we are moving from strong consistency to eventual consistency. So your bounded stillness has a little less consistency than the strong. Your session has a little less than bounded stillness. Your consistent prefix, which is even lesser consistency than your session, right? It says that if, let's say, user A and user B are editing a particular data, user A makes 2 edits and user B makes 1 edit. If user C comes and tries to read the data, unless user B updates another data or the second row, user C won't be able to see the second row update, right? So unless everything is updated, the user C will not be able to see the updated data, correct? And finally, the cheapest consistency model, which is your eventual consistency model, which gives you which takes a little time, but everything gets in order eventually, right? As Cosmos DB is a non-relational database, partition or distribution plays a vital role with respect to Cosmos DB. Correct? Cosmos DB is a very majorly asked service in this particular exam certification examination. All right, we'll be talking about Cosmos DB for a little while, right? Cosmos DB consists of containers. There are physical partitions and there are logical partitions. These containers can have tables or collections of your data or your graph. So Cosmos DB also offers you to have multiple type of data stored in that particular non-relational database. You can either have a key value type tables, you can have a JSON collection there, or you can have graph data stored there where more or less nodes are connecting to each other, right? You divide your data in different types of partition. Physical partition is what Azure takes care about. What we need to take care about is the logical partition or the partition key that we are going to provide. Based on that partition key, Azure is going to actually index my data, right? So choosing a partition key plays a vital role with respect to the latency of the query and latency of your response time, right? Let's talk about how should I choose the partition key, right? This partition key is actually going to evenly spread your data across multiple physical partitions, correct? So if you are, when you are deciding for your partition key, think about the where clause that you are going to make to the database, right? Think what are the keys that are required when I am querying to the database as part of where, right? Let's take an example. Right now, everybody is very much worried about COVID-19, right? The coronavirus, right? So let's say I have a data on this coronavirus's spread and I want to query based on country. So I should have a partition key based on country where get the data of affected people based on country or based on their previous illness or based on their age band, right? So these are some of the where, and which is the most important where clause. Based on that you decide your partition key, right? Now you need to also think about the request units that you are going to provision for your Cosmos DB. If your partition key is not correctly chosen, your request unit per second will start throttling, right? Your request unit per second that you have provisioned will not suffice, right? And if you have to increase your request units are directly proportionate with your pricing. So your request unit will end up spending more from your pocket, right? Now, your Cosmos DB has multiple set of APIs using which you can fetch the data from your Cosmos DB, right? You must think about the partitioning and indexing. You can also store your SQL data, and Cosmos DB offers a SQL data API for you, which is way too much easier for a database administrator who have been working on the SQL databases, right? For your graph database, Cosmos DB actually uses the Gremlin API, right? So that you can make calls and build your graph database and traverse relationship amongst the entities using the Gremlin API with Cosmos DB. Your Cosmos DB is also compatible for you to store the document type of database. So it offers APIs which are compatible for MongoDB, and you can utilize MongoDB APIs to get those documents or read those documents from Cosmos DB. Cosmos DB also offers APIs which are for your table database. So your table APIs will be able to make call based on your table APIs to your Cosmos DB database to retrieve the data from your table. So there is one question which I have seen multiple of my teammates coming and asking me that they had this particular question in their examination, whether or not the answer that they gave was correct, right? So the question was that I have a storage account where I'm using a blob storage, a table blob kind of a storage, and my application is written in a table API format. Now the data has increased and I want to migrate my data from my storage account to some other storage offering by Azure, where I don't need to change the code majorly. Which option should I choose? Should I go with the data SQL database? Should I go with data lake generation 2, or should I go with Cosmos DB? Or I cannot choose any of them. I have to bear with the storage account with table blob in it, right? So the correct answer is your Cosmos DB, because you don't need to change your code at all to read data from your Cosmos DB using the table API, right? The last one is people have started using the columnar database, and Cosmos DB also provides you access or API for your Cassandra compatibility, so that you can read Cosmos DB as if you are reading from a columnar database, right? So that's about your non-relational data storages. Let's move ahead towards the next one, which is your relational databases or relational databases offering by Azure platform. So your Azure SQL database is a managed SQL database by Azure, where you can run CRUD operations and you don't have to worry about the VM or the security on the VM or the scaling of the VM. Setting up as SQL Server on the VM or physical hardware, it requires you to know about the hardware, the software requirements. You will need to understand the latest security best practices and managing and operating the system and SQL Server patches. You have to worry about the routine checks on the security. You also need to manage the backup and data retention issues by yourself, right? With Azure SQL database, this all maintenance FSR is given to Azure or to Microsoft, right? With Azure SQL database, Microsoft will manage the hardware, the software update, the OS patches, and all you need to worry about is the username, is the name of your database, and a couple more options like what is going to be the engine type and all, right? And you'll have a SQL database running for you in no time, right? And it's also cost effective, right? Because Microsoft manages things for us. There is no systems that we need to buy, or we don't need to invest in physical servers, right? The SQL database has several pricing options, which enables you to balance your performance for various costs, correct? You can start Azure SQL database for just a few dollars a month, right? Similar to cost and convenience, scaling also becomes a major loophole when it comes to on-premise database management. It's very, very difficult to scale an on-premise database out, right? You will find that the amount of transportation logistic you must store for data doubles every year. When you are running on-premise, you will need to plan for a lot of excess capacity, which is going to get end any time, right? So with Azure SQL database, you can adjust the performance and the size of your database on the fly, right? When your need changes, let's say today you have provisioned a SQL database which allows you to store 100 GB of data, and you reach 90 GB of data already, and you want to go ahead and convert that 90 GB to that 100 GB to, let's say, 200 GB. It's very, very easier for you to do so, right? You just go ahead, make a few changes, and your database will start, the storage capacity will increase of your database, and it will become a 200 GB database. The last one is the security that Azure SQL database provides. The Azure SQL database comes with a firewall that is automatically configured to restrict connections from internet, which is fantabulous, right? Imagine I am not at all worried about people doing brute force attacks or people trying to gauge my database password by itself automatically. That is being taken care of, right? We can whitelist our IP addresses that we trust, correct, and which will let my Visual Studio or my SQL Server Management Studio or any other tool to talk to my SQL database. I can whitelist IP address, and the firewall will be automatically allowing connections from that particular IP address, right? Again, you do not need to be a DBA for some of this concept, but again, this is just a admin part of it. The performance schema, the performance optimization, again, that is up to you. You have to be very, very cautious about what type of query you design, how you design your database, how is your schema created, how are your relations between the database, right? That's about your Azure SQL database. Let's move ahead towards the next type of solution that they provide, which is for your warehousing, which is the offering that Azure has for warehousing, and the certification gears towards your warehousing questions. Wherever there is massively parallel processing kind of a question in the examination, you redirect or your answer towards Synapse Analytics. Now, Synapse Analytics is consists of two types of nodes. Some of them are control nodes, who are responsible to receive any query, and the other are compute nodes who will take tasks from control node, perform something on it, and then return the data back to your control node, right? If you can see the animation, in the animation, I'm sending the query to my control node sends the query forward to distributed compute nodes perform some tasks on it, and then return the data back to control node, which control node actually aggregates and sends the data back out to the query, right? So I'll repeat, massively parallel processing or the Spark based cluster is enabled by Synapse Analytics, which can process your data parallelly with a huge advantage, right? Let's go to the next one, right? How should I actually put the data in the warehouse? If my data is sitting in my, let's say, data lake storage Gen 2, or if the data is sitting in my SQL database on Azure, or if the data is sitting in SQL database that is installed on my on-premise machine, how should I actually pull the data from all these ingestions to my warehousing solution, right? Azure focuses on something called as Polybase, and there will be quite a few questions surrounding Polybase and what Polybase does and how Polybase does it, right? So let's see what Polybase does actually, right? Polybase is a major loading component to load the data from your database, or as I said, Gen2 or any ingestion tool to your warehouse, right? It uses external tables and ETL tool and takes the data out of it, checks the structure of the data and puts it in the warehouse. Polybase is also responsible to age out the data on your HDFS, right? It'll put the data in the cold storage, but when needed, it can actually query the data. The way it does is it writes the data and reads the data from Hadoop file formats like text, CSV, ORC, or Paraquet, and deals with the data in those formats, right? Polybase also enables us to actually make interactive query between both relational and non-relational database. Imagine you are keeping track of each and every user's, let's say you are a learning management system and you are keeping track of each and every user's progress based on their unique ID, right? And you want to present it on a dashboard where user's name is shown, which is sitting in your SQL database, and his progress is shown, which is sitting in your non-relational database. Polybase is a tool that can actually fetch details from both your relational and non-relational database and display it upon your, return it for you so that you can display it upon your visualization tool, right? As I stated, it parallelizes the data transfer and directs the load of the data to compute nodes, right? So that's about your relational and non-relational databases and their implementations. Let's see how you can secure, because out of this 40 to 45% of your implementation of data storages, a part of it is given also to the security of your data store, right? First, we have already talked about, which is your firewall rules, right? We did say that firewall rules play a major vital role. You have to think through which IPs are being whitelisted, which IPs are there to be whitelisted, which IPs can be whitelisted, cannot be whitelisted. Questions may come that my data engineer is unable to connect to my SQL database. How should you troubleshoot? Because he's trying to access from, let's say 1.1.1.1. Your answer should be whitelisting 1.1.1.1 to the firewall rules. Most of the services that is provided by Azure supports Azure AD based authentication. Any day you can create SQL user within your database and he can access whatever permissions you grant within the database. However, Azure AD is always recommended and always is the strongest. Why? Because let's say you created a user named Prarthit in your database and tomorrow I leave your organization, right? You'll have to keep in mind that I had given Prarthit access to this particular database and I have to release his user from the SQL database. Whereas if you go ahead with Azure AD, as part of the organization's process, you will always release the Azure AD users when an employee leaves. So you as a data engineer, you do not need to worry about releasing a user from the SQL database. His Azure AD accounts deactivated, he no longer has access to your database, right? Similarly, we can use role-based access controls with Azure AD, and we can any day build our own roles on Azure AD that has limited access to storage and SQL, right? Azure also provides capability of enabling encryption on database. This does not mean that encryption is not by default enabled. Encryption is by default enabled with Azure SQL or any kind of Azure storage solutions. You can enforce encryption by providing your own key, correct? The default encryption uses Azure's master key, and they maintain the key, they keep it encrypted. But you can add another layer of encryption by enabling encryption on the database and providing your own key using which they should encrypt the database with. You can always and you must use row level security, right, on your database, which will allow or not allow a particular user to modify the row. And again, a question might come surrounding this in the examination, but question definitely will come surrounding your Azure AD authentication, firewall rules, and enabling auditing on your access of the database, right? Correct. You must enable auditing on the database access logs so that any given point of day, if you need trackability on who logged in from this IP at what given period of time, you can look at it, right? There is a feature that Azure focuses on, which is threat detection, which is again a very beautiful feature by Azure Storage Solutions. For each and every Azure Storage solution that will detect any kind of unwanted traffic or undesired traffic on your database, right? On your data solution. And it provides you a nice little visualization using which you can actually probe into the threat. We'll talk about it in a later slide. The final one is your feature restriction. You can any day enable feature restriction for scenarios such as if I don't want to allow a particular user to delete the data, or if I don't want to allow a particular user to modify the table schema, such feature restrictions you can any day give to your SQL, to your data storage solution on Azure, right? Now, what kind of questions may come from Polybase, right? Uh, the questions might come based on what is the difference between Polybase and Transact SQL or T-SQL? What is the difference? How can I use Polybase with Azure Data Factory? How it reads the data from the file and puts it in? How can I use SSIS? How can I use some third-party tools? However, the questions will not come on the products which are not generally available in 2019. Now, questions will come about coding, but they'll not ask you to write the code. The coding questions will be more of a fill in the blank or select the correct option from the drop down kind of a question, right? And one question that one steps that we have majorly seen is how exactly Polybase extract the data from Blob or Hadoop or data lake or a text file and put it into the data warehouse, which is our Synapse analysis. These are the major steps, and please kindly make a note of it. A question surrounding this will definitely be in your examination, that what Polybase does and how can I implement Polybase, what steps are involved to implement Polybase to read the data from a text file and put it in a Synapse Analytics warehouse, right? Okay, so the steps involved are first it extracts the data into a text file. Then it loads the data into the Blob or Hadoop or Data Lake Gen 2, and then it imports the data from those data solutions to a temporary table in data warehouse using Polybase. It transforms the data from the temporary table and then finally inserts the data into production tables. Again, I'll emphasis on extract, load, temporary table, transform, and finally production tables. Okay, I'll repeat: extract, load, temporary tables on the warehouse, transformations, and production tables. Okay, that brings us to an end of our first study area, which is implementing data storage solutions on Azure for DP200 examination. The DP200 examination costs us 4,800 plus GST if you are trying to appear in India region. The cost varies per region, so I'd advise you to go to DP200 page on Microsoft site and choose your region and get the exact amount from there. However, if you have taken the course from CloudDet and if you have been awarded with a free exam voucher, this particular cost will be null and void. If you have not taken the course from CloudDet and you still want to buy an exam voucher, please get in touch with our sales team. I'll give you the details about how to get in touch with them at the very end of the webinar. The next study area that we are going to talk about is managing and developing data processing solutions on Azure and how the questions are asked from there, correct? This particular study area focuses on two major things, developing batch processing solutions using Databricks. How can I batch process the data, and developing streaming solutions using your Stream Analytics service, right? So let's talk about both the service a little, what are those service and what kind of questions will come up from there, right? The first service that we are going to talk about is your Azure Databricks. Your Azure Databricks is a Spark-based analytics system, which is a Spark-based analytics platform, which simplifies the provisioning and collaboration of Spark-based analysis solutions. And it actually lets you create clusters where you can put enterprise grade security by using Azure AD, and you can integrate Databricks with multiple of cloud services such as your event hubs, your IoT hubs, let's say your blob data, your data lake Gen 2, your Cosmos DB, your Synapse Analytics, right? So basically this is a processing solution or analytics solution that is being provided by Azure. Ideal batch processing architecture will look something like this, where you can utilize Data Factory, Azure Data Factory, to actually traverse the data from ingestion to analysis, right? You can very well provide that, okay, my data source will ingest the data into Event Hub. As soon as you receive the data in Event Hub, you can create a pipeline in Azure Data Factory, which sends the data to a Databricks cluster, which is taking input from multiple sources. It can be another Event Hub or another blob device or another IoT storage, which is IoT Hub, which is sending the data to Databricks. And then Databricks can do some processing based on the Spark capabilities of Databricks, and you can send the result out later and store the result into your Cosmos DB or your Synapse Analytics, or let's say in a file in a particular blob storage, right? And later, after the storage is done, or after the output is being stored in the destination, you can again configure your Data Factory to send the data to the analysis services, which is Azure Analytics or your Power BI or any other data visualization tool that you may have, right? So Azure Databricks is something that is very much popular today in the market. People are using it, and it helps you create notebooks, creates Spark jobs, and you can run Spark jobs parallelly on multiple data that has been ingested from multiple places, right? Next one is about your Data Factory. Now, Data Factory is a very beautiful orchestration tool that orchestrates all other services for you. It can actually provision a data lake Gen 2 storage account. You can ingest the data from Event Hubs and IoT Hubs to that data lake Gen storage account. You can move the data from a particular service to another service, and then that particular service can perform its own tasks, and then it takes the data from there as well and sends it out to another storage location, which can be your Cosmos DB, and then it can actually show it up on your analysis tool, right? But some things to keep in mind about Data Factory is Data Factory is a orchestrator that tells a particular service what job to run. Data Factory itself is not running any job. Data Factory does not actually run the job. It does not run the job. It tells some other service to run the job. An example, it schedules the Databricks to analyze and query the data and send the results to Cosmos DB. In a nutshell, if I want to say something, basically your Azure Data Factory can move the data from one service to another. You can configure pipelines using Azure Data Factory, and there are two ways of configuring pipeline. You can either configure using graphical UI, or you can configure using a JSON. Again, I'd like to emphasize on have a look at the snippets, right? Go through how you create a Azure Data Factory pipeline, right? A pipeline can have linked service such as data lake storage, which is being used by the pipeline to actually pull the data to send the data or to read the data. Then your Databricks cluster can be used by Azure Data Factory to tell the Databricks cluster that here is your storage. Here from this storage you should get the data. Then whatever data you fetch, you can send it out to a data set, correct? You can create activities on the data that Databricks have, or actually you can schedule activities on the data that the Databricks cluster has created. You can create multiple activities and create it, save it in a pipeline. And when the pipeline gets triggered, a particular processing will happen on the data, and that data can go ahead and then go and sit in a data set. So that's your Data Factory. It enables you to orchestrate your data from one service to a visualizing dashboard, right? The next service that you will be asked in this particular session or this particular area would be about your Stream Analytics, how your Stream Analytics workflow is, what are the services that can ingest the data into Stream Analytics, and how will you display the output. So Stream Analytics is majorly for your real-time data processing. So please have an eye on the question. If the question is talking about real-time data analysis, Stream Analytics is the part of the solution somehow, right? Your Stream Analytics takes the data from either Event Hub or IoT Hub. It takes the data from your Event Hub or IoT Hub, and then or a storage blob account, does some event processing, some processing. You can actually write T-SQL queries in your Stream Analytics and process or analyze some data, and that analyzed data can then be given as output to maybe another Event Hub, another storage account, another Data Lake Gen 2 account, a Cosmos DB server, a SQL database, a Power BI dashboard, or any or many more such services. Again, you should keep which services are there that can be used as input and output in your mind. Your Stream Analytics can take input from Event Hub, IoT Hub, and blob storages. A blob storage can be a normal blob storage or a data lake generation 2. And it can store the output in multiple services, can be Cosmos DB, can be another blob, can be Azure SQL, can be an Event Hub, can be a Synapse Analytics, can be Azure Analytics, can be a Databricks cluster, can be Power BI, or any other analysis tool that you are looking for, right? So these are some areas that you should keep in mind for the second area of your of your examination, that is managing your data processing solutions or implementing data processing solutions. Again, this brings me to an end of that 25% of the weightage. The next area that we are going to talk about is how Azure judges, or how you are judged for monitoring and optimizing your data solutions. This particular area is further divided into how you monitor the data storage, how you monitor the processing solutions, and how you utilize some of Azure services to actually optimize your on the whole architecture. Correct? So let's talk about monitor, right? A major aspect on monitoring on Azure is covered by Azure Monitor. Azure Monitor is a monitoring service that is offered by Azure, which lets you set up metrics, which lets you set up logs, and which lets you set up alerts on those metrics if something goes wrong, right? You can set up alerts based on applications monitoring data or the guest operating system on which your Databricks cluster is running, that monitoring data. You can set up alerts on the resources state. You can set up alerts based on your subscriptions expiry. You can set up alerts based on your Active Directory tenants data, how the Active Directory tenant is serving, and you can actually utilize and analyze them and visualize all the metrics in a superb, nicely curated UI of Azure Monitor, right? This actually does not, the UI is not part of the performance-based lab, but setting up alert is definitely part of the lab, right? Where how will you go and performance-based lab, that how will you create a metric, right? You can actually capabilities of Azure Monitor is to search logs, to create custom alerts. It can also monitor your network performance on how your network is doing, with whether or not the latency between your, let's say if you have a hybrid scenario, whether or not latency between your on-premise data and your Azure cloud is proper or not, is in at par or not. Whether or not in your multi-tier application, your application gateway is properly set up, how many client server errors are reported by your application gateway, how many requests per hour are being processed by your application gateway, how much count is there for healthy or unhealthy hosts per application gateway, and you can also get how many failed requests are there based on your application gateway. Now, within the blade of a data platform, a technology in Azure portal, you can also actually each and every storage solution, there is a blade there is a menu called diagnose and solve problem. Now that's a very beautiful feature which allows you to analyze what is going on with your resource and lets you solve the problem. Let's say that it solves errors. It brings up activities such as there are any recent errors, or is there the services health is available or not, right? Is there any failed deployments recently? What is the role assignments given to this particular service, right? Such issues, diagnose and solve can help you troubleshoot, right? So keep in mind that if there is a question surrounding how to utilize Azure portal to get to know, to troubleshoot a data store, by going into diagnose and solve problems menu within your data store area, data store blade. That's your answer, right? There are several common data platform issues like connectivity issues and performance issues, which you should be aware about, and how will you resolve it. As I stated earlier, your troubleshooting performance lab will definitely have questions such as if I'm not able to connect to my database, SQL database, or I'm not able to connect to my Cosmos DB. I'm not able to connect to my Synapse Analytics. The answer to most of them would be whitelisting the IP when an error is unable to connect to a data platform, right? Whereas if, let's say, the errors are for authentication failures, we have to first ensure that the username and passwords are correct. For the SQL Server, whether if you are using Active Directory authentication, the username and password are correct for my Active Directory. We also have to, from the Azure Blob perspective, we must check the storage shared access credentials, and we must check the account keys whether they are correct or not, right? Such are some of them are troubleshooting issues that you can can be asked questions on, right? There may be questions surrounding I am getting an error which is saying unable to connect, but the error code given in the database, error code given by the Azure portal is error code 40613. I'd again want you guys to have a look at it. I repeat the error code. The error code is 40613. This particular error code refers to the database is currently being failed over, right? Your primary machine that was serving your database has faced some difficulty, or either it has been taken down for maintenance, and Azure is currently in the process of failing over your database, right? This is likely to be a transient connectivity issue before Azure itself reconfigures, and it should not take more than 60 seconds. It usually takes way less than 60 seconds, correct? And if something goes wrong, so this is again a question that might come surrounding this, that there is a unable to connect error with the error code 40613. What is true about this particular error code? How will you troubleshoot it? You really don't need to troubleshoot it. It will be resolved within the 60 seconds. It is in the process of migrating your database from primary to secondary, or your secondary is being promoted right now as primary, and SQL database or SQL database service is working on getting a database up. If everything fails, right, there is always a last resort, which is your Microsoft Azure Service Dashboard, which will let you know if there are any known issues for that particular service, right? Issues like if there is any physical errors, right? So question might come in an examination that where can I go and check whether there is any physical errors like network cable break or a physical server outage, right? Where are such information provided by Azure? Such information is provided by Azure on the Azure Service Dashboard, correct? You will be also judged on the performance issues, where how will you resolve the performance issues? There's one question that always comes up with data storage performance issues, which is surrounding I am not able to, my data lake storage is not performing to the fullest, right? The answer to which is make sure that you have hierarchical namespace enabled on your storage account. Once your hierarchical namespace is enabled, then only your storage account will behave as if it's a data lake storage, right? With respect to Cosmos DB, your questions may be, I am shedding out on my RUs, I am shedding out a lot of money from my pocket. How should I optimize it? How should I check it? It's because the wrong selection of your partition key, right? It's majorly because wrong selection of your partition key, right? Correct. The questions will come surrounding the consistency level of strong, bounded stillness, sessions, consistent prefix, and eventual. Again, I'd like to draw your attention to strong is the costliest, eventual is the cheapest, bounded stateless talks to you about how many number of records or up to what time of records, up to what time the data should be consistent. Session consistency is for a user session. The data will be consistent for that particular session. Consistent prefixes in order reads and in order writes. And finally, eventual consistencies. Eventually, everything will be consistent, right? How will I detect my data's threat, right? Again, a beautiful feature is available to optimize your data solution with respect to managing the data's life cycle. You can actually detect threat by auditing the data log, and you can automate the auditing. You can let Azure detect the threat by enabling threat detection. You set up the threat detection. You set up an alert email for your threat detection. In the screen, you can see that there is Mr. John Smith, who's getting alerted if there is any potential threat that threat detection detects, right? It creates alert, it sends out alert to his email where he'll have the dashboard link where he should go to. He'll go there and explore the threat, and if the threat is legitimate, he can actually go and mitigate those threats, right? That brings me to more or less an end on our discussion on optimizing on areas how Azure judges you, right? Let's talk about how should you prepare, and then we'll talk about some of the sample questions that I have for you, right? First and foremost, you can go to the DP200 exam page. There you can find out the details about the exam, the skills measured, what are the training options available, when you can schedule your exam, how much is it costing per region. All of this thing you can, all of them you can figure it out on this particular URL. You can any day utilize. I saw that one of the question, one of you asked that if I have not taken your classroom training, how much of a Microsoft Learn helps, correct? Microsoft Learn do help. However, with Microsoft Learn, you go to the, you take the training. If you have any questions, you have to put it up on a forum. You have your forum will be answered. It will take a little time for people to answer it. A classroom training is always better where you have the trainer then and there for you to, it's a 3-day course, so for you to bug his mind for next 3 days, and you can actually ask all your questions at a real time. And finally, after doing MS Learn, if you want to go through MS Learn, after going through the MS Learn videos or self-paced course, classroom trainings, after taking classroom trainings by Microsoft certified trainers that that Clouded provides, like me, and then you can take practice test. Take the practice test a lot more time before you go and actually attend the exam. You can, if you need practice test, Clouded has its own practice tests. Sample questions from our practice test we'll see, and we can actually you can gauge your knowledge based on how good you are doing with respect to the knowledge that is required to clear DP200 examination, right? You can look at it, and there are various ways. These are some of the ways that you can prepare for certification. I have some 7 or 8 sample questions for you guys. We'll quickly discuss about them. The first sample question that I want to present to you guys is that a company named ABC has a data platform team that is ingesting and transforming huge amounts of data coming from various data sources. Which approach would scale and offer better performance and reduce resource contention on source systems on Azure platform? The options are extract, load, and transform, extract, transform, and load, online transactional processing, and or nothing that makes sense. So the correct answer here for this particular question is answer B, extract, transform, and load is what will reduce your resource contention and will be easily be able to work with scale with better performance using your Polybase and your Databricks cluster, right? Let's move on to the next question. The next question we have is one of your customers are looking for designing structure that is composed of vertices and edges to find relationships between data points and use it further to analyze in developing a dashboard for a business intelligent platform, right? Which Azure service meets the requirement, right? Ensure that your choice is a cost efficient one, right? So this particular question is a tricky one, right? It has given you data, but it has given you data in a very complex fashion. If you really focus on this a couple of words, a structure that is composed, a structure that is composed of vertices and edges to find relationships between the data. They are actually confusing us with the, let's say there are multiple vertices and there are multiple edges that connects to this particular data, right? Pardon the bad design that I have, right? So it actually is talking about graph database, the connections between nodes and the edges, right? So the correct answer is the graph database, and the service that we must use is graph database or graph capability with Cosmos DB. We must use Cosmos DB for graph database is the correct answer, right? The next question I have for you is, let's suppose you work in a company that has a lot of data models distributed in various data store technologies like SQL database, MongoDB, key value database like Cassandra, and various graph related use cases. You are responsible for migrating the different data models to an Azure platform with minimal operational efforts. Which service will you choose? Okay. Again, I'd want to pull your focus to this particular words, minimal operational efforts, and the type of data that they have is they have some structured data, they have some MongoDB kind of document data, they have key value databases like Cassandra, right? And they have graph database. If you think about my session today, there is a particular service where I did talk about multiple APIs that offers SQL, MongoDB, and key value based APIs and graph APIs. The Gremlin API, if you can remember, right? So the answer for this particular question is deployed to Cosmos DB. Cosmos DB is your correct answer. So let's move to the next one. Next question that I have for you is which of the following data models are not supported in Azure Cosmos DB database for NoSQL implementation? You are allowed to choose multiple answers. So I'd again bring your attention to the keywords that are given in the question. Here it is talking about something that is not supported by your Cosmos DB. Your Cosmos DB supports Gremlin. Your Cosmos DB supports MongoDB. Your Cosmos DB supports Cassandra. The correct answer for this particular question is actually answer C and D, right? That your Couchbase API and your weblog files is something that is not supported by your Cosmos DB. Next question I have for you is a true or false kind of a question, which talks about Azure Synapse Analytics is a decoupled data warehousing architecture which enables customer scale their compute or storage independently and pause compute layer when it is not in use for best cost efficiency. Whether this is true or false. The answer for this question is true. With Azure Synapse Analytics, you can very well configure that when my analytics cluster is idle, scale down my compute resource or stop my compute resource so I don't incur additional cost. Okay. Next question I have is that a company plans to use SQL database to support a mission critical application. It anticipates frequent maintenance and is looking for a solution which can provide high availability even during maintenance. What would you choose? What would be the solution for your recommendation? Make sure you are looking at the correct keywords. Here also the keywords are high availability during maintenance. Correct? You can go with zone redundant replication configuration on your blob along with a premium tier that supports highest performance. So your correct answer in this for this particular question is zone redundant replication, so that you have multiple copies of your data and you can actually fail over if a zone fails, and with the blob premium tier that supports highest performance. Okay. Next question I have for you is that you have a client who wants to design a data store technology that should be highly available in multiple regions and must have a design to allow read and write from multiple regions to reduce the latency. What will you propose? Will you propose a data warehouse, a database, a Cosmos DB database, or an IoT hub? What will you propose? Again, I'd want you to read the question case carefully. We are looking for high availability. We are looking for multi-regions and multi-region read and write, which is out of the options only Cosmos DB offers, right? Cosmos DB offers us multi-region reads and writes, and which is very beautiful feature for such kind of scenario where the client's requirement is to read and write from multiple regions so that they can reduce latency. Correct answer for this is your Cosmos DB. So last question of the day on this particular webinar would be your what would be the effective way to load, migrate and ingest data into SQL data warehouse from online transactional processing services like SQL database, right? Which analytical platform should you enable? This question is actually talking about how will you copy the data from one place to another and what platform will you use? The correct answer for this is by using Polybase, so that it can do a massively parallel reads, and along with Data Factory to load data to warehouse from OLTP database. With that, I open the forum for any kind of questions you have. Please feel free to get in touch with us. I'd request you, I'll recommend that because we have gone through the webinar and I hope you have been doing practice on DP200 labs. I'd recommend you to go now. Currently, there is this because of the coronavirus, so many companies have given work from homes. Utilize this time to take a as I stated earlier, we can also take the exam sitting at home. I'd request you guys to take the exam sitting at your home. You can do an online proctored exam, and you can actually book an online proctored exam and utilize this time to get certified, right? If you have any questions regarding our trainings, CloudDex trainings on DP200, when is the next schedule of the training, when is the next webinar, what course the next webinar is about. If you have any such details, any such queries, any such questions, please feel free to either phone us on 0888 000 2200 or write it to us on sales@clouded.in, or you can actually visit our website and fill out the form so that we or my team will get in touch with you. Thank all of you for joining us for the webinar. Hope to see you for the next one. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone, I'm Prashant from Cloud Consulting team. Hope you all had a great session today. I'm here to help you on how one can become an Azure expert in the most economical and the fastest way considering the current situation. So the prevailing situation has not only given us the fear of losing the job, but also the anxiety of finding one. So a couple of questions added to this. Are our skills relevant to survive the economic crisis the world is experiencing? How valuable are you to your employers? And what are the skills aligned with job market opportunities? With this, let me pull out some more facts on the current trend as to why there is a need today to take the Azure certification. 70% of CIOs have cloud first strategy. 85% of enterprises pledge to integrate cloud architecture in their organizations. By 2021, 38% of IT positions will be cloud related. 24% of respondents said they took Microsoft training in the past 12 months. 21% of respondents said they received a job offer or promotion upon sharing their Microsoft digital badge with employers. With these facts, let's move on to what are the benefits of getting certified. Certified employee will always get greater recognition. Microsoft certified technologies earn up to 20% more. Cloud certifications increases the employability. Certified teams are more productive than non-certified teams. In order to support this, we have a program called Azure Mastery Pass, which is a one-stop solution for all your Azure certification needs. So before moving on to the details of Azure Mastery Pass, let's see why one has to choose CloudThat and what are the benefits of that. CloudThat, we are the Microsoft worldwide learning partners and we have delivered highest number of Azure trainings in India so far. Our mission is to help IT professionals gear up and ensure against the tides of change. Trained 20,000 plus professionals in classroom trainings and 200K professionals through online trainings. We also have a dynamic team of certified professionals and robust consulting division that complements our trainings. Now let's see what are the details of the Azure Mastery Pass and why one has to choose that. This pass allows access to 14 Azure certification courses designed and run by highly qualified cloud experts. It also helps to upskill and keep aligned to the market opportunities, which is great for freshers, experienced and expert professionals alike. This pass holders will also be eligible to get expert guidance and to choose the right cloud career path. And also get additional benefits like test preparation, resume building, placement support, and mock interviews. Let's see what are the certifications which are part of this Azure Mastery Pass. One can start with Azure Fundamentals, which is AZ 900, and move on to Azure Administrator Certification, which is AZ 103, or the latest one, which is AZ 104. Developing solutions for Azure, which is a developer certification, which is AZ 203, or the latest one, which is AZ 204. Architect technologies or architect design, which is AZ 300 or AZ 301. The latest one is AZ 304. Azure DevOps Engineer, which is AZ 400, Azure Security Certification, which is AZ 500, designing and implementing an Azure AI solution and data science solution, which is AI 100 and DP 100 respectively, implementing an Azure data solution and designing an Azure data solution, which is DP 200 and 201 respectively, and couple of new certifications added, which is Azure for IoT developers, AZ 220, and Azure for SAP workloads, which is AZ 120. All these certifications are a part which one can target under this Azure Mastery Pass. Now let's see what are the Azure Mastery Pass subscription fee and also the options available. We have a monthly option, quarterly, half yearly, and also yearly option. Monthly Azure Mastery Pass will cost you 19,900 plus GST. 3 months option will cost you 34,900 plus GST of 18%. 6 months option will cost you 44,900 plus GST of 18%. 12 months option will cost you 59,900 plus GST of 18%. So we will also be sending the Azure Mastery Pass details to you over an email, and I request you to register your interest. So once register, we will also call you and help you more in detail. So with this, one can become an Azure expert in the most economical and also the fastest way. I hope you enjoyed the session today, and thanks a lot for joining this session. Have a great day.